Hello, this is Catherine Morgan-Nance here to continue our discussion about capital budgeting techniques. This video explains one approach managers use with the net present value method to rank investment projects in order of preference. We will also cover the payback period method in this video. A popular axiom in business is that anything is possible given adequate money and time. Well, money is certainly never limitless, is it? We can always find more ways to spend it, and we never have enough to do everything we want to do. Accordingly, managers must allocate limited funds among competing investment alternatives. When funds are limited, projects with equal net present values may not be equally desirable, depending upon the upfront investment. Furthermore, the net present value of one project cannot be directly compared to the net present value of another project unless the initial investments are of equal value. Up next, we will learn how to rank competing projects using the Project Profitability Index. This method compares a project's net present value with the investment required. As noted a moment ago, even when two projects return equal net present values, the projects may not be equally desirable, especially when funds are limited. Managers must consider the initial upfront investment. It should make sense that a higher initial investment is less desirable. In the case of unequal investments, a profitability index can be computed for competing projects by dividing the net present value of the project by the investment required. On the screen you see two projects with equal net present values of $1,000. However, the initial investment in Project A is $10,000, twice as large as the $5,000 investment for Project B. If a company has limited cash, it might not be able to invest the whole $10,000 in Project A, right? After computing the profitability index for each product, you should notice three things. First, the profitability indexes for investments A and B are 0.1 and 0.2 respectively. The higher the profitability index, the more desirable the project. Therefore, the investment in B is more desirable than the investment in A. Another way to think about it is that the net present value of Project B is 20 cents per dollar invested. In this type of situation, the constrained resource facing management is the limited funds available for investment, and the profitability index is similar to the contribution margin per unit of the constrained resource. We just spent some time learning about the time value of money and net present value method. Other methods exist for evaluating capital investments, including the payback period method and the simple rate of return method. Both ignore the time value of money, but can help managers as they pre-screen projects for further consideration. The focus of this next section is the payback period method. The payback method focuses on a project's payback period, which is the length of time it takes for a project to recoup its initial cost out of the cash inflows that it generates. This method does not use the time value of money, even though it analyzes cash flows. When the net annual cash inflow is the same every year, the formula for computing the payback period is simple. Divide the initial investment required by the project's annual net cash inflow. Many of you do this informally when making personal financial decisions. For example, when you buy something on a credit card, you might calculate how long it will take to pay off the card if you pay a certain amount every month. Please make a note of two things. First, the initial investment in a project is reduced by the salvage value of any old assets traded in or sold at the beginning of the project. And secondly, to convert from an accrual-based net operating income to cash flow basis, non-cash operating expenses such as depreciation must be added back to net operating income. You have seen this computation occur previously, for example, during the preparation of the cash budget. Let's walk through a quick example. Assume the management of the Daily Grind wants to install an espresso bar in its restaurant. The cost of the espresso bar is $140,000 and it has a 10-year life. The bar will generate annual net income of $24,500 which has already been reduced by depreciation expense of $10,500. Annual cash inflows are thus $35,000. That's $24,500 in net income, adding back the $10,500 in depreciation. Management requires a payback period of 5 years or less. What is the payback period on the espresso bar? Before starting your calculations, remember the following. If you are provided with annual net income, you should assume it is presented on an accrual basis and you must convert it to a cash basis. Depreciation is a non-cash item that must be added back to accrual-based net income to determine cash flows from a project. However, you can ignore depreciation if you're initially provided with the cash flows. Please let me know if this doesn't make sense. And here's the solution. The company's initial investment of $145,000 is reduced by $5,000 salvage value of the tables traded in. Net operating income of $24,500 is adjusted to a cash basis by adding back the impact of the $10,500 in depreciation expense. Divide $140,000 by $35,000 to derive a payback period of 4 years. Because the payback period is less than 5 years, management would choose to invest in the bar. We just considered a very simple scenario. Generally speaking, cash flows are not even every single year. When cash flows associated with an investment project change from year to year, the payback formula introduced earlier cannot be used, and instead the unrecovered investment must be tracked year by year. For example, if a project requires an initial investment of $4,000 and provides uneven net cash inflows in years 1 through 5 as shown above, the investment would be fully recovered in year 4. Your textbook includes a good example of how to determine the payback period when cash flows are uneven. Please review this topic in more detail on your own. As noted previously, the payback method is sometimes used to screen projects to determine if they meet a minimum acceptance standard. It is also helpful for cash-poor companies that don't have funds available to invest in long-duration projects. Criticisms of the payback method include the following. First, a shorter payback period does not always mean that one investment is more desirable than another. This is because the payback method ignores cash flows after the payback period, thus it contains no inherent mechanism for highlighting the difference in useful life between investments. Secondly, the payback method does not consider the time value of money and thus does not measure profitability of an investment. In the next video, we will consider a different screening tool, the simple rate of return. See you there.